My husband cheated on me with 3 women at his bachelor party, and they sent me the videos. So I decided to expose everything. My name is Angelica, and I'm about to tell you the story that changed my life forever. 3 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, I came home from work to find a manila envelope sitting on our kitchen table. Juan wasn't home yet. He was supposedly at his buddy's place helping him move. I almost ignored the envelope. It had no return address, just my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. When I opened it, my world collapsed in 30 seconds. Photos, dozens of them, and a small USB drive. My hands shook as I spread the pictures across our granite countertop, the same spot where Juan had proposed 6 months earlier. The first photo showed Juan at his bachelor party 2 weeks ago. I remembered that night. Carla, my best friend since college and maid of honor, had organized a girls' night for me while the guys went out. She'd insisted I relax and not worry. "Boys will be boys," she'd laughed. "Besides, you trust Juan completely, right?" But there he was, arm around a blonde woman I didn't recognize, both clearly intoxicated and far too close. His wedding ring was nowhere to be seen. The second photo was worse. Juan kissing the same blonde, his hands in places that made my stomach turn. The third showed him with a brunette. By the fourth photo, my vision blurred with tears, but I couldn't stop looking. Then I saw her. Carla, my best friend, my maid of honor, the woman who'd helped me pick out my wedding dress, who'd thrown me 3 bridal showers. She was in photo 7, and she wasn't just witnessing Juan's betrayal, she was participating. The image showed Carla and Juan in a hotel room, both partially undressed. But what destroyed me wasn't just seeing them together. It was the look on Carla's face. She wasn't drunk or making a mistake. She looked triumphant. With trembling hands, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. The first video showed Carla arriving at the hotel, carrying party supplies. Instead of leaving, she stayed. The video showed her encouraging different women to approach Juan, buying them drinks, pointing him out. "He's getting married in 2 weeks, her voice said clearly through my speakers. But what happens at the bachelor party stays at the bachelor party, right? The second video was unbearable. Juan and Carla together, but worse was hearing them talk afterward. "She has no idea how boring she's become," Juan said. "Always talking about the wedding, the house, the future. You remind me of when life was fun." "She's always been too trusting," Carla replied. "Sweet little Angelica, always believing the best in everyone. She actually thinks you've changed since college. She'll probably never find out. She's so focused on playing the perfect bride." I slammed the laptop shut. My chest felt tight, like steel bands were tightening around my ribs. Our kitchen, with the herb garden I'd planted and refrigerator covered with engagement photos, suddenly felt like a stage set for a play I'd never auditioned for. My phone buzzed. Juan. Moving took longer than expected. Grabbing dinner with the guys. "Don't wait up. Love you, babe." Another buzz. "Carla. How's the wedding planning going? Only 3 weeks left. So excited to see you become Mrs. Martinez." I stared at both messages. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks? I was supposed to walk down the aisle of St. Michael's Church in front of 200 guests, wearing the dress that cost me 3 months' salary. But as I sat in the growing darkness, something else began to grow alongside my devastation. Not just anger or hurt. This was something colder, more calculated. They thought I was boring, predictable, too trusting to figure it out. They were about to discover how wrong they were. The next morning, I woke before my alarm and lay in bed listening to Juan shower. 3 months ago, his off-key humming would have made me smile. This morning it made my jaw clench so hard my teeth ached. When he emerged with a towel around his waist, that easy grin on his face, I bit my cheek to keep my expression neutral. "Morning, beautiful," he said, kissing my forehead. His lips felt like ice. "Morning," I managed. "How was the move yesterday?" "Exhausting," he said without missing a beat. "Danny's got way too much stuff. Took us until midnight to get everything loaded." I nodded and smiled like the trusting fiancé I'd been 24 hours earlier. Over coffee, I watched him read emails, occasionally showing me memes. He seemed completely relaxed. If I hadn't seen those photos, I would never have suspected anything. After he left for work, I sat with my laptop and the envelope's contents. My hands were steadier now, my mind clearer. I'd spent the night thinking, and by dawn, my plan had crystallized into something beautiful and terrible. I wasn't going to cancel the wedding. I wasn't going to confront him privately or quietly break up. They wanted a wedding? They were going to get one they'd never forget. My first call was to Rodriguez Event Production. "Hi, this is Angelica Torres. I'm getting married in 3 weeks at St. Michael's Church, and I want to add a special surprise element, something really memorable." "What did you have in mind?" "I want to install a large screen behind the altar. I have a romantic video montage as a surprise for my fiancé, something that will wow all our guests." We discussed details. The screen would be 12 feet by 8 feet, positioned so every guest would have a clear view. Their technician would operate everything from the sound booth. My second call was to my cousin Ricardo, who worked in video editing. "I need help editing footage. It's personal. And I need it to look professional." "What kind of footage?" I decided on honesty. "Proof of my fiancé cheating. I'm going to show it at our wedding." Long pause. Angelica, are you sure? Maybe there's a better way. Ricardo, will you help me or not? Send me the files. I'll make it look like a Hollywood production. The next few days were a masterclass in acting. I continued wedding plans, confirming details with caterers, florists, photographers. I smiled and played the excited bride while secretly coordinating the most elaborate revenge in wedding history. Juan remained oblivious. He continued his routine. Work, gym, nights out with the guys. He even brought me flowers Thursday. Only 2.5 weeks until you're Mrs. Martinez, he said, spinning me around our living room. I can't wait either, I replied, and it was the most honest thing I'd said to him in days. Carla was equally clueless. She called daily with wedding updates. I picked up my dress yesterday. You're going to be so beautiful walking down that aisle. I'm sure it'll be a day none of us will ever forget. Definitely. Everything's going to be perfect. You and Juan are so lucky. The irony was suffocating. Ricardo called 3 days before the wedding. Your video's ready. I have to ask one more time. Are you certain about this? More certain than I've ever been. What you've created here? It's going to destroy people's lives. Good, I said, and meant it. The final video was art. Ricardo had edited the most damning footage into a seamless 10-minute presentation with timestamps, clear audio, and artistic transitions. He'd included not just physical evidence, but conversations afterward. Juan and Carla laughing about my naivete, planning future encounters, joking about how easy it was to deceive me. 2 days before the wedding, I met Father Rodriguez for final consultation. Everything seems in order, he said. Is there anything else? Actually, yes. I've prepared a special presentation, a video about our relationship. Very meaningful. That's unusual for a ceremony. It's important to me that everyone sees it before I make my vows. He nodded slowly. If it's that important, we can accommodate it. As I left the church, strange peace settled over me. In 48 hours, everyone would know exactly who Juan and Carla really were. Wedding morning arrived with perfect Arizona sunshine that seemed to mock my inner turmoil. I woke at 5 a.m. in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. Where tradition dictated, I spend my final night as a single woman. Mija, you're glowing, my mother said, bringing coffee and toast. This is going to be the most beautiful day. If only she knew, I thought, accepting the coffee. My hands were surprisingly steady, steadier than they'd been in weeks. By 7 a.m., I was at the church for final setup. The Rodriguez event production van was already there, technicians unloading equipment through the side entrance. Ms. Torres, I'm Miguel from Rodriguez Events. We're here for your surprise presentation. Perfect timing. How long will installation take? About 2 hours. The screen will be positioned behind the altar, control cables to the sound booth. You said your cousin would operate it? Yes, Ricardo will handle everything. I handed him Ricardo's contact information. As technicians worked, I watched with strange detachment. They were installing equipment that would destroy my fiancé's life in 6 hours, humming while they did it. This is going to look amazing, the lead technician said, adjusting the massive screen. Your fiancé will be so surprised. He really will be. By 9 a.m., the church was transformed. The screen dominated the space behind the altar, looking professional and intentional. They'd even decorated it with white and gold fabric, making it blend with our chosen aesthetic. I met Ricardo in the parking lot as the AV team finished. My cousin looked nervous, unusual for him. Last chance to reconsider, he said, holding the USB drive. Once I hand this over, there's no going back. There's no going back anyway. The only question is whether Juan and Carla face consequences, or continue living their lies while I pretend I never found out. Ricardo studied my face, then nodded. You're stronger than I thought. I'm stronger than anyone thought, including me. The morning flew by. Hair appointments, makeup, photography, relatives arriving. My bridesmaids gathered in the bridal suite, chattering excitedly while I watched my reflection transform into the perfect bride. Carla arrived at noon, radiant in her deep blue maid of honor dress. Angelica, you look stunning. Juan is going to die when he sees you. I hope so, I said. And she laughed. I brought you something, she said, pulling out a small blue box. Something blue for tradition. Inside was a delicate sapphire bracelet. The irony of accepting a gift from my betrayer should have been painful, but I felt only cold amusement. It's beautiful, Carla. Thank you for being such a good friend. Always, she said, fastening it around my wrist. We've been through everything together, haven't we? College, terrible boyfriends, and now your perfect wedding. Yes, we really have been through everything together. At 1 o'clock, Father Rodriguez checked final details. The processional begins at 2:30, and your special presentation is queued up after the groom's vows, as requested. Perfect. I can't wait for everyone to see it. Just remember, marriage is about forgiveness and understanding, even when things don't go as planned. If he only knew how prophetic those words were. At 2 o'clock, the church filled to capacity. Through the window, I saw guests streaming in, dressed in their finest, carrying gifts and flowers, excited to witness what they thought would be a beautiful union. Juan's family on the right, mine on the left. In the sound booth, Ricardo sat with the technician, USB drive loaded and ready. He caught my eye and gave a small nod. Everything was in place. Carla was fixing her lipstick, humming the wedding march. I can't believe this day is finally here. You've been planning so long. It really is happening, and I have a feeling no one will ever forget it. The photographer knocked. Ladies, time for processional photos, then we begin. My bridesmaids filed out. chattering nervously. Carla paused at the door, turning back with genuine affection that would have broken my heart a week ago. I'm so proud of you, Angelica. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Thank you, Carla. That means everything. She smiled and left. Through the window, I could see Juan at the altar, handsome in his black tuxedo, talking casually with groomsmen. He looked relaxed and happy. In 10 minutes, the processional would begin. In 25 minutes, that massive screen would light up with the truth. I picked up my bouquet and took one last look in the mirror. The woman looking back was beautiful, composed and ready to destroy him. The wedding march began, and I heard 200 guests rising to their feet. Through the doors, I glimpsed candlelight flickering on white flowers. Faces turned expectantly toward me, and Juan standing at the altar with that confident smile I'd fallen for 3 years ago. My father offered his arm. Ready, mija? I've never been more ready for anything. The processional felt like a dream sequence. My bridesmaids walked in perfect formation, their blue dresses creating a river of color. Carla moved with particular grace, catching Juan's eye with a small, secret smile that made my jaw clench. When the traditional march struck its opening notes, I stepped into view. The collective intake of breath was audible. I did look beautiful in grandmother's vintage lace gown, with the cathedral-length veil I'd saved months to afford. Juan's expression was everything a bride could want. Wonder, love, genuine emotion. For a moment, my resolve wavered. This was the man who'd held me through grandmother's death, surprised me with homemade birthday cakes, talked for hours about our future house and children. But then I remembered the video of him calling me boring, and my spine straightened. The walk felt eternal and instantaneous. Faces blurred past, Juan's conservative parents beaming with pride, my college roommate wiping tears, coworkers in their best suits. Everyone looked so happy, so expectant. When I reached the altar, Juan stepped forward, his eyes bright with what looked like genuine love. You look incredible, he whispered, voice cracking with emotion. So do you, I replied, and meant it. He was handsome in his black tuxedo, dark hair perfectly styled. Father Rodriguez began with traditional words about love, commitment, and sacred bonds. I heard maybe half, my attention focused on the massive screen behind him, currently dark but loaded with explosive content. Marriage, he continued, is built on trust, honesty, and willingness to share your deepest self. The irony was almost funny. When time came for vows, Juan went first. He'd written his own, delivering them with heartfelt sincerity that would have brought me to tears a week ago. Angelica, 3 years ago, you walked into my life and changed everything. You made me want to be better, to be the kind of man who deserves someone as amazing as you. Murmurs of appreciation rose from the congregation. Someone was already crying. I promise to love you through everything life brings. I promise to be faithful to you, to support your dreams, and never take for granted the gift of your trust. The word faithful hung in the air like an accusation. Juan's voice was steady, his expression earnest. I promise to make you laugh when you're sad, celebrate your victories, and be your partner in all things. You are my best friend, my greatest love, and my future. He paused, voice becoming intimate despite the crowd. Angelica, you are everything good in my world, and I cannot wait to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me. The church was silent, except for soft sounds of people dabbing their eyes. His parents were beaming, my mother crying openly. Juan reached for my hands. I love you, Angelica Torres, and I always will. Soft applause erupted, and Father Rodriguez smiled broadly. Beautiful words, Juan. Now, before Angelica shares her vows, she's prepared a special presentation. I saw Juan's eyebrows lift in surprise and delight. A surprise? He mouthed, grinning boyishly. Yes, I said clearly, my voice carrying through the microphone. Something I think everyone should see before I make my promises. I turned to address our guests directly. Thank you all for being here to witness what I thought would be the beginning of Juan and my life together. Before I pledge myself forever, there's something I discovered that you all should know. The atmosphere shifted slightly. Juan's smile faltered, and I saw Carla's expression sharpen with concern. I nodded toward the sound booth where Ricardo waited. Juan, you said you promised to be faithful. You said you'd never take my trust for granted. Angelica? What? He started, but I held up my hand. Let me show everyone what your promises are really worth. The screen behind the altar flickered to life, 12 feet of high-definition betrayal commanding every person's attention. The first image appeared, Juan at his bachelor party, arm around a blonde woman who definitely wasn't me. The church fell absolutely silent. The video began to play, Ricardo's expert editing creating a devastating narrative of infidelity. Juan with multiple women, laughing and drinking like a single man celebrating freedom rather than a committed man about to be married. Timestamps were clearly visible. 2 weeks ago. Exactly when Juan said he was helping Danny move. I watched Juan's face as truth unfolded on the giant screen behind him. Color drained from his cheeks, mouth opening and closing soundlessly. But the best part was still coming. The video shifted to show Carla arriving at the hotel, and I heard gasps as guests recognized my maid of honor. Audio was crystal clear as she encouraged women to approach Juan, orchestrating the entire evening of debauchery. Then came footage of Juan and Carla together, and the church erupted. Oh my God, someone gasped. That's the maid of honor, another voice said, shocked. The video continued with their post-betrayal conversation. Voices filling the church through professional sound. Juan calling me boring. Carla laughing about my trust. Both planning future encounters while I planned our wedding. The explosion of reaction was immediate and deafening. 200 people began talking at once. Gasping, shouting, crying. Some standing for better views of the screen where betrayal continued playing. Angelica, I can explain. Juan started, reaching for me, but I stepped back, holding the microphone close. Explain? My voice cut through chaos, amplified and clear. Explain how you've been lying for weeks? Explain how my best friend organized your infidelity? Please, Juan, explain it to all of us. Juan's face was completely colorless except for 2 red spots on his cheeks. He looked frantically around as if seeking escape, but we were surrounded by people he'd known his entire life. Family, co-workers, childhood friends, all staring with expressions ranging from shock to disgust. Turn it off, Carla hissed from beside the altar, bouquet forgotten on the floor. She tugged at her dress as if trying to hide. Turn the damn thing off. Why would I turn it off? We're just getting to the best part. On screen, the video moved to a particularly damning segment where Carla and Juan planned their next encounter. She'll never suspect anything, Carla's voice said through church speakers. She's so focused on the perfect wedding that she's completely oblivious. Juan's mother, a devout Catholic who'd raised 5 children and never missed Sunday Mass, stood abruptly from the front pew. Juan Miguel Martinez, she said, voice shaking with fury. What have you done? His father, a respected contractor who'd built half the neighborhood, remained seated, but his face was stone. 40 years of marriage, he said quietly, but his voice carried. 40 years, and this is how you treat the woman you claim to love? Dad, please, it's not what it looks like, Juan started, but his words were drowned by fresh gasps as the video showed him and Carla in an even more compromising position. My own family's reaction was just as dramatic. My father, who'd walked me down the aisle minutes before, stood with such force he knocked over programs. Get away from my daughter, he said, voice deadly quiet. My mother was crying, but not happy tears. These were tears of rage and heartbreak for her daughter's public humiliation. How could you do this to her? She demanded, pointing at Juan. How could either of you? The bridesmaids, all college friends who'd known Carla almost as long as I had, stared with complete bewilderment. Jessica, my former roommate, spoke first. Carla, what the hell is wrong with you? You organized his bachelor party, added Monica, voice rising. You helped plan this wedding. You threw her 3 bridal showers. Carla was visibly shaking, perfect makeup smudging as tears mixed with foundation. It just happened, she said weakly. We were drunk, and it just... Bullshit, I said into the microphone, and several elderly relatives gasped. Show them the planning messages, Ricardo. The screen shifted to screenshots of text conversations between Juan and Carla, dating back months. Messages about when I'd be out of town, when they could meet, how to coordinate schedules around my work and wedding planning. This wasn't a drunken mistake. It was calculated affair spanning half our engagement. Juan made another desperate attempt to control the situation. Angelica, please, can we talk privately? There are things you don't understand. What don't I understand, Juan? I interrupted, voice echoing through the church. Help me understand how you promised to love and cherish me while planning to sleep with other women. Help me understand how you called me boring to my best friend while she helped you cheat. I turned to face Carla directly, who was pressed against the altar as if trying to disappear into marble. And you, Carla, my best friend, my maid of honor, the woman I trusted to help plan the most important day of my life. Would you like to explain how long you've been sleeping with my fiancé? Carla's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The silence stretched until she finally whispered. Angelica, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. You never meant for this to happen? I repeated, voice rising. Show them the text from last month, Ricardo. The screen changed to display a text conversation. Carla's message, sent while I was at my bridal shower that she organized. Can't wait for tonight. Angels at the shower until 10. Your place or mine? Juan's response. Mine. She thinks I'm working late on the Henderson project. Carla's reply. Perfect. Maybe we should tell her after the honeymoon. This sneaking around is getting old. The congregation erupted again. Several women were crying openly. Not tears of joy but horror and sympathy for me. Men were standing, pointing at Juan and shaking their heads in disgust. You were planning to continue this after our wedding? I asked, voice deadly calm. You were going to let me marry him knowing you'd both keep lying? Carla finally found her voice, though it came out broken. We were going to end it, I swear. After the wedding, we were going to stop. Liar, said Jessica, voice cutting through chaos. Show them all the messages. Angelica, show them how long this has really been going on. Ricardo was ready. The screen displayed a timeline of messages dating back 8 months, almost our entire engagement. Messages about secret meetings, avoiding getting caught, their physical relationship, and worst of all, about me. She's so trusting it's almost pathetic, read one message from Carla. She actually thanked me for helping her pick out lingerie for your honeymoon. She has no idea I know exactly what you like. I feel sorry for her sometimes, Juan had replied. But then she starts talking about wedding colors or mortgage paperwork, and I remember why I need you to keep me sane. Ricardo had organized these chronologically, creating a devastating timeline showing this wasn't passion or mistake. It was sustained emotional and physical affair that had mocked our relationship for months. Juan's groomsmen, childhood friends who'd stood beside him minutes ago, were backing away as if he had contagious disease. His best man Danny shook his head in disgust. Dude, you're sick, Danny said, loud enough for several rows to hear. I helped you lie to her. I covered for you. I thought you were having cold feet, not this. Juan tried to approach me one more time. Angelica, baby, please, we can work through this. What Carla and I had didn't mean anything. You're the one I want to marry. I laughed, and the sound was sharp and bitter in the sudden quiet. What you had didn't mean anything. 8 months didn't mean anything. Planning to continue after our wedding didn't mean anything. I gestured to the screen, where a particularly damning message was displayed. This message where you told her you loved her didn't mean anything? Because there it was, in black and white. I love you, see? This thing with Angelica is just comfortable, safe. But what we have is real. Juan's shoulders sagged as he saw his own words displayed for everyone to see. I was confused. I didn't mean... You meant every word, I said. The only thing you didn't mean were the vows you just said to me. I turned to address the congregation directly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to witness what was supposed to be the beginning of my marriage. Instead, you've witnessed the end of my relationship with 2 people I thought I could trust with my life. I pulled off my engagement ring and held it up for everyone to see before placing it on the altar. This ring was supposed to symbolize trust, commitment, and love. Instead, it became a symbol of lies and betrayal. The silence that followed was deafening until Juan's father, Roberto Martinez, stood slowly from the front pew. His face was carved from stone, dark eyes blazing with fury I'd never seen before. Roberto commanded respect in our community. A successful contractor who'd built half the neighborhood, a deacon at the church, a man whose word was his bond. 43 years, he said, voice carrying across the silent church. 43 years I've been married to your mother, Juan. Through poverty, illness, raising 5 children on a construction worker's salary. Never once did I break my vows. Never once did I dishonor our family name. He stepped into the aisle, weathered hands clenched at his sides. And this is how you repay the values we taught you? This is how you treat a woman who loved you enough to bind her life to yours? Juan took a step toward his father. Papa, please, I can explain. Explain? Roberto's voice rose to a roar that echoed off the church walls. Explain how you brought shame to our family in the house of God? Explain how you made a mockery of the sacrament of marriage in front of everyone we know? Maria Martinez, Juan's mother, was crying quietly in the front pew, rosary clutched in trembling hands. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but when she stood, she seemed to fill the space with her dignity and pain. Mijo, she said, voice breaking. How could you do this? How could you hurt this beautiful girl who loved you so much? Mama, it's not what it looks like, Juan started, but his mother cut him off with a gesture that silenced him immediately. It's exactly what it looks like, she said firmly. And worse. Because not only did you betray Angelica, you made your family accomplices to your lies. Every time we asked about the wedding, every time we planned and celebrated, you let us believe in something that was false. The weight of his parents' disappointment was visible on Juan's face. His shoulders sagged, and for the first time since the video started, he looked truly defeated. But his parents weren't finished. You are no longer welcome in our home, Roberto said, voice steady and final. You will not use the Martinez name to conduct business in this community. You have dishonored everything that name represents. Papa, you can't mean that. I mean every word, Roberto replied. Until you learn what honor means. Until you understand the magnitude of what you've done. You are no son of mine, the congregation gasped. In Latino families, being disowned by your parents was the ultimate disgrace, especially in public, especially in church. But Roberto Martinez was a man of principle. Meanwhile, my own family was rallying around me with fierce protectiveness that made my heart swell even through my devastation. My father, typically quiet, was standing beside me like a guardian. Mr. and Mrs. Martinez, he said, addressing Juan's parents with respect despite everything. Your son is not the only one who has brought shame today. He turned to look at Carla, still cowering beside the altar, blue maid of honor dress wrinkled and stained with tears. This woman was welcomed into our family like a daughter. She ate at our table, celebrated holidays with us, was trusted with our most precious girl. My mother, usually the peacemaker, was standing with arms crossed, face harder than I'd ever seen it. 20 years, she said, voice shaking with controlled rage. 20 years that girl has been in our house, and this is how she repays our trust? Mrs. Torres, I'm so sorry. Carla tried to approach my mother, but my father stepped between them. Don't, he said simply. Don't come near my family again. My brothers, who had flown in from different states for the wedding, were standing behind our parents like a wall of protection. Miguel, the eldest, spoke for all of them. If we ever see you around our sister again, there will be consequences. The division in the church was becoming clear. Juan's extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins who had driven hours to attend, were sitting in stunned silence, some shaking heads in disgust, others whispering furiously. I could see several getting up and walking out, unable to stomach being associated with what they'd witnessed. Carla's own family looked mortified. Her mother, a woman I'd called Tia Rosa for years, was crying into her hands. Her father had his face covered. But it was Carla's younger sister, Sophia, who delivered the final blow. Sophia stood up, face twisted with disgust, and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. You're dead to me, she said to Carla. Angelica is more family to us than you are. What you've done is unforgivable. As chaos continued in the church, I noticed several guests had their phones out, recording the aftermath. In today's world, nothing stays private long, and I realized this confrontation was already spreading beyond St. Michael's walls. Turn off those cameras, Father Rodriguez finally intervened, his voice commanding despite the madness. This is still a house of God. But it was too late. I could see from guests' faces that videos had already been shared, messages sent, social media posts created. Juan and Carla's humiliation was already becoming public knowledge far beyond our wedding guests. Juan seemed to realize this too. His face, already pale, turned almost green as he saw phones pointed in his direction. Please, he said, voice cracking, don't post those videos. Think about my job, my family. You should have thought about your job and family before you decided to cheat, said David Chen, Juan's colleague from the engineering firm. David was holding his phone, and from his expression, he'd already sent whatever he'd recorded. This is going to be all over the office by Monday, David continued, shaking his head. How are you going to face our clients? How are you going to face anyone? I watched this realization dawn on Juan's face. He worked for a prestigious engineering firm that prided itself on integrity and family values. The company's founder, Mr. Peterson, was a deeply religious man who believed personal character reflected professional reliability. David, please, Juan begged. You don't understand the whole situation? I understand enough, David replied coldly. I understand that you're a liar and a cheater, and I never want to work on another project with you. Carla's professional destruction was happening simultaneously. As a freelance marketing consultant, her business depended entirely on reputation and personal relationships. Several clients were at the wedding, including Mrs. Rodriguez, who owned a chain of boutique shops. This is disgusting, Mrs. Rodriguez said loudly, gathering her purse. I will not have my business associated with someone of such poor character. Consider our contract terminated. Mrs. Rodriguez, please. Carla tried to follow her client toward the exit, but Mrs. Rodriguez turned with fire in her eyes. Don't you dare come near me or my stores. I have daughters, and I will not have them exposed to someone who would betray her best friend like this. The social media impact was immediate and devastating. I could see guests checking phones and gasping as posts began appearing. My cousin Andrea showed me her phone. It's already trending locally, she whispered. The hashtag Spire Wedding Revenge is spreading like wildfire. Within 30 minutes, Juan's professional reputation was in ruins. His phone was buzzing constantly, and I could see panic in his eyes as he realized the scope of what was happening. My boss is calling, he said to no one in particular, staring at his phone in horror. Mr. Peterson is calling me during your wedding. But it was happening. Juan was learning that professional destruction could occur as quickly as a viral video. Carla's situation was even worse. As a freelancer, she had no corporate structure to protect her. Her business was her reputation, and her reputation was now toxic. Her phone was also ringing constantly, but instead of answering, she seemed paralyzed. I watched her scroll through social media, face growing paler with each post. They're sharing the video, she whispered to herself. Everyone is sharing the video. The wedding photographer was packing up his equipment with obvious discomfort. I'm sorry, he said to me, but I don't feel right profiting from this situation. I'll refund your payment. Actually, I said, stopping him, I'd like you to stay. I want documentation of how this ends. As guests continued to leave, many stopped to speak with me. The support was overwhelming. Juan's own relatives were approaching to apologize for his behavior, to distance themselves from his actions. Mija, said his Aunt Carmen, tears in her eyes. You are a good girl, and you deserve so much better. Our family is ashamed, but perhaps the most significant consequence was yet to come. Mr. Peterson, Juan's boss, didn't just call. He showed up. I saw him enter the church about 45 minutes after my revelation, face grim, still wearing golf clothes. The fact that he had left his golf game and driven across town spoke volumes about how seriously he was taking the situation. Martinez, he called out, voice carrying authority. We need to talk, now. Juan approached his boss like a man walking to his execution. Their conversation was brief and quiet, but I could see Juan's shoulders sagging with each word Peterson spoke. When Peterson left, Juan was visibly shaken. His best man Danny approached cautiously. What did he say? Danny asked. I'm fired, Juan replied numbly. Effective immediately. He said the company can't have someone of questionable moral character representing them to clients. The financial implications were staggering. Juan had lost his good salary, company car, health insurance, and reputation that had taken years to build. All gone in less than an hour. The wedding that was supposed to be the beginning of our life together had become the end of theirs. By Sunday morning, less than 24 hours after my wedding that wasn't, ripple effects were spreading through our community like wildfire. I woke up in my childhood bedroom to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My mother knocked with coffee and a grim expression. Mija, you need to see this, she said, handing me her tablet. The local news website had picked up the story. The headline read, Bride exposes cheating fiancé and maid of honor at wedding ceremony. Below was a photo someone had taken of the church's giant screen displaying Juan and Carla in their most compromising moment. It's everywhere, my mother continued. Morning radio shows are talking about it. Your cousin says it's all over Facebook and Instagram. I scrolled through comments on the news article. Hundreds of them, mostly supportive. Good for her, read one. I wish I'd had her courage when my husband cheated. But the real damage was happening to people who had been complicit in Juan and Carla's deception. My phone rang. Jessica, one of my bridesmaids. Angelica, you need to know what's happening, she said without preamble. Remember Tom and Lisa? The couple who introduced you to Juan? I did remember. Tom and Lisa Patterson, married friends from my yoga class who had brought Juan to a dinner party specifically to meet me. They'd been so proud of playing matchmaker. What about them? I asked. Lisa called me this morning, crying. Apparently Tom knew about the affair. Juan told him months ago and Tom never said anything. Lisa found out yesterday when the videos went viral and she's filed for divorce. My stomach dropped. She's divorcing him over this? She said if he could keep a secret like that about his friend, how could she trust him with anything? She's saying he's an accessory to emotional abuse. This was exactly what I hadn't anticipated. How my revelation would create fractures in other relationships, forcing people to examine their own partnerships through the lens of loyalty and honesty. Jessica wasn't finished. And there's more. You know Derek, Juan's groomsman? His girlfriend Sarah found out he knew too and didn't tell her. She dumped him last night. How many people knew? I asked, feeling sick. More than we thought. It's like your video opened some floodgate. People are coming forward saying they had suspicions, or they'd seen things, or they'd been told pieces. Everyone who stayed silent is now being held accountable by their own partners. The domino effect was brutal and comprehensive. By Monday, I learned that at least 6 couples in our extended social circle were having serious relationship problems because one partner had known about Juan and Carla's affair and said nothing. But perhaps the most devastating consequence was happening to Carla's business. As a freelance marketing consultant, she depended on word-of-mouth referrals and personal recommendations. In 48 hours, her professional network had evaporated. Mrs. Rodriguez hadn't just terminated her contract. She'd actively warned other business owners. I called everyone I know, she told my mother at the grocery store. I told them exactly what kind of person they'd be hiring. The restaurant where we'd planned our reception, Bella Vista, called me Monday morning. Miss Torres, the manager said, we wanted to let you know we've refunded your deposit and canceled your reservation. We also wanted you to know we've banned both Mr. Martinez and Miss Carla from our establishment. You don't have to do that, I said, though I was touched by their support. Actually, we do. Several of our regular customers were at your wedding, and they've made it clear they won't continue to patronize our restaurant if we welcome people who would behave so despicably. The social ostracism was complete and devastating. Juan and Carla weren't just losing individual relationships, they were being systematically excluded from the entire community we'd all shared. My cousin Ricardo called Tuesday with an update that was almost comical in scope. The video has been shared over 10,000 times, he said. I'm getting calls from talk shows wanting to interview you. Apparently you've become some kind of folk hero for betrayed women. I don't want to be anyone's hero, I told him. I just wanted the truth to come out. Well, the truth is definitely out. Juan's been evicted from his apartment. Apparently his landlord saw the video and decided he didn't want that kind of tenant. And Carla's had to move back in with her parents because she can't afford rent without her clients. 2 weeks after the wedding, the legal and financial ramifications began crystallizing into something far more devastating than I had initially anticipated. What started as public humiliation had evolved into complete financial ruin for both Juan and Carla. My lawyer, Patricia Velasco, called me Wednesday morning with news that made my coffee taste bitter. Angelica, we need to discuss the house situation. It's more complicated than we initially thought. The house. Our house. The 3-bedroom ranch we'd bought together 8 months ago, both our names on the mortgage and deed. It had been our symbol of commitment, our nest egg, our future. Now it was about to become Juan's financial disaster. The mortgage is $20,800 a month, Patricia continued. With Juan unemployed and his credit rating plummeting due to the publicity, he can't qualify for a refinance to remove your name. He also can't afford the payments alone. What does that mean for me? It means you have grounds to force a sale. Given the circumstances and the fact that his infidelity caused the relationship ending, you're in an excellent position to demand immediate liquidation of all shared assets. The timing couldn't have been worse for Juan. The housing market had softened recently, and homes in our neighborhood were taking longer to sell. Our house, which we'd bought for $320,000, would probably sell for around $290,000 after realtor fees and closing costs. So he'll lose about $30,000, I asked, plus his half of the down payment, which was $25,000. He's looking at a total loss of about $40,000, assuming the house sells quickly. For someone now unemployed with a destroyed reputation, $40,000 might as well have been $400,000. But the house was just the beginning of Juan's financial problems. His company car had been repossessed the day after he was fired. His health insurance was terminated. And because he'd been fired for cause, he wasn't eligible for unemployment benefits. My friend Monica, who worked in HR for a large corporation, explained the broader implications when she called that evening. Word has gotten around the professional community, she said. I've heard from 3 different companies that Juan has applied to, and all of them have passed. His name is basically toxic now. Even for technical positions? I asked. I mean, his engineering skills haven't changed. Engineering firms deal with major clients who trust them with multi-million-dollar projects. Nobody wants to hire someone whose personal character has been so publicly questioned. The risk isn't worth it. Meanwhile, Carla's financial situation was deteriorating even faster. As a freelancer, she had no employer benefits to lose. But she also had no safety net. Her business, Creative Marketing Solutions, had been generating about $75,000 a year before the wedding. Now it was generating nothing. Her sister Sophia called me unexpectedly Thursday. We'd always been friendly, but she was calling with information that surprised me. Angelica, I thought you should know that Carla is in real trouble, Sophia said. She can't make rent, she can't afford her car payment, and she's maxed out her credit cards trying to survive. Why are you telling me this? I asked, genuinely curious. Because I want you to know that what you did worked. She's facing real consequences for what she did to you. Sophia explained that Carla had applied for over 30 jobs in the past 2 weeks. From marketing positions to retail work to restaurant jobs. Every single application had been rejected once employers realized who she was. The video is the first thing that comes up when you Google her name, Sophia continued. No one wants to hire someone with that kind of reputation. The most devastating blow to Carla came from an unexpected source, her professional insurance. As a marketing consultant, she carried errors and omissions insurance to protect herself from client lawsuits. When her insurance company learned about the viral video and circumstances surrounding it, they made a decision that effectively ended any chance of her continuing in marketing. They've classified her as an unacceptable risk, Patricia explained when she called with this information. Without professional insurance, no reputable company will hire her as a consultant, and she can't start her own firm again. This meant that even if public attention died down, even if people forgot about the video, Carla would still be locked out of her chosen profession. The financial pressure was also creating legal problems for both of them. Juan received notice that he was being sued by 3 women from his bachelor party who had discovered they'd been lied to about his relationship status. 3 weeks after my wedding day revelation, Juan and Carla's desperation began manifesting in increasingly pathetic attempts to salvage their reputations and rebuild their lives. What I witnessed during this period was a masterclass in how not to handle public disgrace. It started with Juan's social media campaign. Instead of staying quiet and letting attention die down, he decided to fight back publicly. His first Instagram post was a long, rambling explanation that began with, "There are 2 sides to every story. What happened at my bachelor party was a mistake," he wrote. "I was drunk and confused about my feelings. Yes, I made errors in judgment, but Angelica's public humiliation was cruel and disproportionate. I loved her and wanted to make things right, but she never gave me the chance." The response was immediate and brutal. Comments filled with people calling him delusional, narcissistic, and worse. Screenshots of his post were shared across social media with mocking commentary. One particularly viral response read, "Imagine thinking 8 months of calculated cheating is an error in judgment." But Juan wasn't finished. He followed up with a Facebook video that was even more damaging. In it, he appeared unwashed and emotional, sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room, speaking directly to the camera. "I want to apologize to Angelica and to everyone who was hurt by what happened," he said, voice shaking. "But I also want people to understand that I'm human. I made mistakes, but I don't deserve to have my entire life destroyed over them." The video revealed more than Juan intended. The cheap motel room spoke to his financial desperation. His appearance suggested he wasn't coping well with stress. Most damaging of all, his words suggested he still didn't understand the magnitude of what he'd done. The video was shared thousands of times, but not with sympathy. People mocked his self-pity, created memes from his most pathetic moments, and used it as an example of how not to apologize for infidelity. The phrase "I'm human" became a running joke in relationship forums. Carla's attempts at redemption were even more misguided. She started by reaching out to mutual friends, trying to explain her side of the story. These conversations invariably went poorly and were often shared with others, further damaging her reputation. "She called me last night," Jessica told me, voice filled with disgust. "She wanted to explain that she never meant to hurt you, that her feelings for Juan were real, and that the whole situation just got out of hand." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that intentionally seducing your best friend's fiancé doesn't get out of hand. It's planned, deliberate, and evil." Then I hung up. But Carla's most damaging decision was to grant an interview to a local blogger who ran a relationship advice website. She thought telling her story would generate sympathy and perhaps help rebuild her image. Instead, it became a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. In the interview, Carla attempted to reframe herself as a victim of her own emotions. "I fell in love with Juan," she said. "You can't control who you fall in love with. Yes, I should have told Angelica, but I was scared of losing both of them." The blogger, sensing a story that would generate clicks, pressed her on timeline and details. Carla, apparently believing that honesty would help her case, revealed information that made everything worse. "It started about 6 months before the wedding," she admitted. "Juan told me he was having doubts about marrying Angelica, and I was there to listen. One thing led to another." She went on to describe their relationship in detail, including information about their secret meetings, communications, and plans for the future. Most damaging of all, she revealed that they had discussed telling me after the honeymoon, framing it as if they'd been planning to be honest all along. The interview was titled, "The Other Woman Speaks, A Story of Love and Regret," and it exploded across social media platforms. But instead of generating sympathy, it created a new wave of outrage. People were appalled by her attempt to romanticize her betrayal, her continued selfishness, and her complete lack of genuine remorse. The comments were savage. "She's still trying to make this about her feelings," wrote one person. "Zero accountability, zero genuine apology, zero understanding of what she destroyed." Another comment that gained hundreds of likes said, "Notice how she never once mentions how Angelica felt or what Angelica lost. It's all about her love story with a cheating fiancé." The interview also revealed information that further damaged Juan's attempts at rehabilitation. Carla mentioned that Juan had called me boring and predictable, that he'd complained about our relationship regularly, and that he'd said he was only marrying me because it was the safe choice. When people shared quotes from Carla's interview alongside clips from Juan's video apology, the contradictions became glaring. He claimed he loved me and wanted to make things right, while she revealed he'd been disparaging our relationship for months. Their separate attempts at damage control were undermining each other, creating an even more damaging narrative than my original revelation had. The most cringe-worthy attempt at redemption came when Juan tried to reach out to me directly. He sent a 20-page handwritten letter to my parents' house. The letter was a rambling mix of apology, self-justification, and desperate pleading. "Angelica," it began, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know how sorry I am. What happened between Carla and me wasn't real love. It was a fantasy, a mistake that got out of control." The letter contradicted everything Carla had said in her interview, suggesting they were now turning on each other in their desperation. 6 months after my wedding day revelation, I was sitting in a coffee shop in downtown Phoenix, reviewing speaking notes for what had become an unexpected new chapter in my life. The woman across from me was Sarah Chen, a literary agent who had tracked me down after my story gained national attention. "Publishers are very interested," Sarah was saying. "Your story has resonated with women across the country. The combination of betrayal, empowerment, and justice has struck a chord." It was surreal. What had started as my personal moment of revenge had evolved into something larger, a symbol of standing up for yourself when the people closest to you betray your trust. I'd received thousands of messages from women sharing their own stories and asking for advice. "I never intended to become a spokesperson for anything," I told Sarah. "I just wanted Juan and Carla to face consequences for what they did." "And they certainly have," she replied, consulting her notes. "According to my research, Juan is working at a hardware store in Tucson and living with his cousin. Carla moved back to her hometown in New Mexico and is working as a night shift security guard." The updates on their lives had come through various sources over the months. Juan's desperate letter-writing campaign had continued for weeks, each letter more pathetic than the last. In one, he begged me to call his mother because she was heartbroken over losing the daughter she never had. In another, he offered to go to therapy, to church, to do anything if I would just speak to him. I never responded to any of them. Carla's attempts at redemption had been equally unsuccessful but more publicly destructive. After her disastrous interview, she'd tried to start a blog about learning from mistakes and growing through adversity. The blog lasted 3 posts before comment sections became so toxic, she shut it down. She'd also attempted to rebuild her marketing business under a different name, but the internet's long memory made that impossible. Someone always recognized her and shared her story, making it impossible to maintain professional relationships. The most satisfying update had come through my cousin Ricardo, who'd heard that both Juan and Carla had tried to move to different cities to start over, only to discover their story had become part of internet folklore. The wedding video had been viewed millions of times, spawned countless reaction videos, and become a cautionary tale shared in relationship forums worldwide. "What's interesting," Sarah continued, "is how your story has evolved beyond just revenge. You've become a symbol of self-respect and refusing to accept unacceptable behavior." She was right. Speaking engagements had started small, a local women's group, then a college workshop on healthy relationships. But as my story spread, invitations grew larger and more frequent. I'd spoken at corporate events about integrity, at therapeutic conferences about betrayal trauma, and at women's empowerment seminars about trusting your instincts. "The book could reach even more people," Sarah added. "Your story could help women recognize red flags, find courage to demand better treatment, and understand they don't have to suffer in silence." I thought about the hundreds of messages I'd received. Women thanking me for showing them it was possible to stand up for themselves. Teenagers saying my story had helped them recognize manipulation in their own relationships. Even men writing to say my story had made them examine their own behavior and commit to being more honest with their partners. My personal life had also transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The strength I discovered when planning my revelation had continued to grow. I'd left my old job at the insurance company and started my own business consulting with small companies on crisis management and reputation protection. Ironically, my experience with carefully orchestrated truth-telling had made me an expert in strategic communication. I'd also met Marcus. He was a lawyer who'd attended one of my speaking engagements and approached me afterward to discuss the legal implications of my case. What started as a professional conversation had evolved into something deeper, a relationship built on complete honesty, mutual respect, and shared values. "Marcus knows everything about what happened," I told Sarah. "Every detail. We've talked about trust, about communication, about what it means to truly commit to someone. He's seen me at my strongest and most vindictive, and he still wants to be with me." "That's beautiful," Sarah said. "And it's part of your story too. The aftermath isn't just about destruction, it's about rebuilding and finding something better." She was right. While Juan and Carla had descended into poverty, isolation, and regret, I had ascended to a life more authentic and empowering than anything I'd experienced before. As for my relationships with family and friends, the experience had strengthened every genuine connection, while revealing which relationships were worth preserving. My parents were proud of my strength and success. My true friends had rallied around me and remained close. "So what do you think?" Sarah asked. "Are you ready to turn your experience into something that could help millions of women?" I looked out the coffee shop window at the busy Phoenix street, 6 months ago, I'd been a woman planning a wedding to a man who was systematically betraying me. Today, I was a woman who'd discovered her own power, built a new career, found genuine love, and become an advocate for others facing similar betrayals. Juan was stocking shelves in Tucson, still trying to rebuild a reputation that would never recover. Carla was working security at a warehouse, her dreams of business success buried under the weight of her choices. Both had learned that actions have consequences, and some consequences last forever. Meanwhile, I was building a life based on truth, self-respect, and the understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is refuse to accept unacceptable treatment. Yes, I told Sarah. I'm ready to tell the whole story. The book would be titled, The Wedding That Wasn't: How I Turned My Betrayal into My Empowerment. It would become a bestseller, inspiring countless women to demand better for themselves. Juan and Carla would remain footnotes in their own story of deception, while I became the author of my own narrative of strength and renewal. Perfect revenge, it turned out, wasn't just about destroying the people who wronged you. It was about building something beautiful from the ashes of their betrayal. But for a long time, I wondered who had sent those photos. The answer came 18 months later at a Scottsdale coffee shop. A blonde woman in her mid-20s approached my table hesitantly. "Are you Angelica Torres?" she asked nervously. "I'm Jessica Walsh. I was at your fiancé's bachelor party. I sent you those photos." My heart stopped. This was the blonde woman from the pictures. "I had no idea Juan was engaged," she continued quickly. "He told me he was single, recently out of a relationship. We even went on 2 dates after the party. Then I saw your engagement photos on Facebook and realized I'd been used." She showed me screenshots of Juan's lies, how he described me as controlling and boring, how he'd actively pursued multiple women during our engagement. "I contacted other women from that night," Jessica explained. "We realized Juan had lied to all of us. When I heard Carla talking about how trusting you were, how easy you were to deceive, I knew I had to warn you somehow. Why didn't you include a note? I was terrified you'd think I was just trying to break you up so I could have him. I wanted you to see the truth without any agenda from me." She revealed something that stunned me. "After your wedding video went viral, 6 other women contacted me." 6. He wasn't just cheating with Carla. He was systematically deceiving multiple women throughout your entire engagement. The scope of his betrayal was staggering, but I felt only relief. "I'm sorry I was part of hurting you," Jessica said, tears in her eyes. "You weren't part of hurting me," I replied firmly. "You saved me. You were a victim of his lies too." As we parted ways, I felt profound closure. The mystery was solved, and it was more satisfying than I'd imagined. Juan's betrayal had created an unlikely alliance between the women he'd deceived, and Jessica's courage had saved not just me, but potentially countless others from his deception. Perfect revenge, I realized, sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes the people who seem part of your destruction become the instruments of your salvation.